Enormous bite marks on the fossilized remains of sea lions and whales. Colossal triangular teeth scattered along the seafloor or washed up on our beaches. Beneath the waves there was once a terrifying predatorzo. Enormous, a human would look like a jelly bean standing next to it. A creature with jaws so powerful they could snap a whale in half. It is, of course, Megalodon, one of the largest predators ever to have lived. But Megalodon, the terrifying prehistoric shark made famous by Hollywood, might not have been the bus-sized animal that people have been led to believe. Evidence of Megalodon's existence has been around since the dawn of human civilization. Their teeth, which lay scattered on the ocean floors, each one as big as a man's hand, have been used as weapons, jewelry, and in ceremonies in ancient societies. Today, they provide a glimpse into this iconic prehistoric marine predator, and not all is as it once seemed. Rather than being a colossal version of today's great white shark, scientists now believe that Megalodon may have been a far more slender shark. With a less bulky frame than originally depicted, Megalodon may have had a more elongated tail, which would actually make it longer than previous predictions. That's not to say that it wasn't a frightening predator of its time, but what changed to make scientists completely rethink what Megalodon looked like? There has never been a full fossilized skeleton of Megalodon. Being cartilaginous like all sharks, fossilization of their body structures is highly unlikely. Only their fossilized teeth and vertebrae have been used to identify them. These findings, along with suspiciously brutal bite marks found on the fossilized remains of prey species, are the only evidence of their existence. Recently, an international team of shark researchers looked at previous calculations based on these fossils and found errors in the models used. By their calculations, previous spine length estimates and total body length estimates simply didn't add up. Everyone had assumed Megalodon had had the same torpedo-like body shape as today's great white sharks. But by modelling Megalodon as a more slender shark with a longer, thinner tail, a bit like a mako shark, suddenly made more sense. And these new calculations suggested something else. If the Megalodon's body shape was different, then maybe its ecology was too. Megalodon may not have hunted as we once thought. It may not have behaved like a great white, or moved like one. Everything we had ever believed about Megalodon was now being questioned. So what was the largest of all sharks really like 23 million years ago? Let's step back in time. The Miocene epoch was a time in our Earth's history when modern-day climates, landscapes, and ecosystems were beginning to take shape. The world was a warmer place but began cooling. Grasslands expanded and forests retreated. Land and marine ecosystems contained many species we would recognize today. And Megalodon took full advantage of that. Partially warm-blooded, Megalodon was a step ahead of other large marine predators. Keeping its muscles warm allowed it to hunt more efficiently. It could cruise along at a consistent rate, hunting in the deep, lurking in the shallows. When it homed in on its target, a sudden burst of energy propelled it forwards, its jaws opening wide, its eyes rolling back at the point of contact. Its devastating bite force would have crushed bone, torn muscle, and resulted in catastrophic blood loss. This was an apex hunter patrolling the seas that were rich in marine life. And the world was its oyster. In the cold, nutrient-rich seas beyond the tropics, where most sharks slowed and weakened, Megalodon remained active. With less competition at greater latitudes, the giant shark had the pick of all the prey, and growing to such enormous sizes, meant that it could take down whales that migrated to the colder waters to feed. Whilst some marine hunters were restricted to the warmer equatorial waters, Megalodon could disperse further, hunt beyond its competitors' range, and have full access to the prey on offer. And that's not all. Being partially warm-blooded meant that Megalodon could digest its prey more quickly, rapidly taking in the nutrients it needed to feed its massive size. Rather than waiting weeks or months before its next meal, Megalodon was ready to hunt sooner, allowing it to grow faster, become more powerful, and dominate the seas. A more elongated body also added to its more efficient digestive system. A longer gut allowed food to be absorbed along its full length, taking full advantage of the colossal meals it often digested. Becoming so large, some say measuring as much as 54 feet, 16.4 meters long, meant that the giant shark was immune from most predatory attacks. There was a certain level of safety from being so massive, and with size and power on its side, it could also hunt some of the largest marine animals on the planet. But if history is anything to go by, it's usually the larger species that succumb to unforeseen changes in the ecosystem. Could Megalodon's size ultimately be its downfall? Perhaps. But Megalodon seemed to be an adaptable and flexible species. It didn't just eat one prey animal, it hunted lots. It wasn't restricted to just one area of the ocean. Its range was vast. Some argue that Megalodon might not have been the hunter it's been depicted as in the movies. Yes, its jaws measured 7 feet wide and it was able to bite a whole whale in half. But fossil evidence suggests something different entirely. Bite marks found on smaller species, such as some small baleen whales, and the pinnipeds, which include seals and sea lions, suggest these animals were also on the menu. The 7-million-year-old fossils of a dwarf baleen whale, an early ancestor of modern seals, both only around 5 meters long, were discovered in southern Peru. What was most eye-catching about these findings were the megalodon-sized bite marks on these specimens. The first recorded evidence of a megalodon attack. Some Megalodon may have been a giant, but it didn't necessarily eat like one, at least not all the time. Scientists found something else that was fascinating in the fossil record. Megalodon's teeth seemed to change with age. The younger specimens were sharp, knife-like, and adapted for slicing flesh, not unlike today's great white sharks. Whilst the adult teeth were thicker and more robust, presumably for crunching through bone. These findings suggest that the juvenile Megalodon likely hunted smaller prey. It was more agile when it was younger, making it an active hunter. But as it grew, and its teeth changed shape. Some researchers now suspect that adult Megalodon may have scavenged far more often than previously believed. Its ecology changed through its lifetime. It is not disputed that these enormous sharks took down fully grown whales, but they were also likely drawn to carcasses, something that didn't require speed and agility, and something that didn't fight back. At the time, Megalodon was the king of the oceans. Its partial warm-bloodedness gave it a huge range in which to hunt. It was an opportunistic hunter, taking down small, medium, and large prey. Its elongated body and warmer internal temperature increased its efficiency. It seemed nothing could stop this adaptable and successful species. But its very strengths ultimately became its greatest weaknesses. Megalodon disappeared around 3.6 million years ago, near the end of the Pliocene epoch. This time period was characterized by dramatic climate shifts and changing sea levels. Global cooling, expansion of the Antarctic ice sheet, and fluctuating sea levels began to wreak havoc on a seemingly indestructible Megalodon. Its extinction didn't happen overnight, and it doesn't appear to be one single factor responsible for its demise. Some of the seas became too cold for Megalodon to hunt in, its range constricted. No longer did it have little competition from other shark species. They were now all scouring the same hunting grounds, and the warm-bodied megalodon that was once an advantage began to suffer. It required more food to keep it going, a greater energy intake, constant hunting. With a faster metabolism, it had to eat more regularly than its cold-blooded counterparts. And what's more, the prey species that Megalodon once hunted were adapting themselves. Whales became larger and faster. Their migration routes changed with the changing seas. Other species that Megalodon had actively hunted, the dwarf baleen whales and early seal relatives, also struggled to adapt to the colder oceans. Unlike the larger marine mammals, these diminutive species were unable to make the journey to the frigid feeding grounds, and so they died out. So with fewer animals to hunt within their range, the Megalodon species was slowly starving. The warm, shallow waters Megalodon used as nurseries for their young disappeared. With greater volumes of water locked up as sea ice, sea levels dropped. The protective, nutrient-rich coastal waters that Megalodon used to give birth to its young were no more. Megalodon was slowly in decline, while other sharks stepped into its niche. The great whites had a slower metabolism. They needed less food to keep them alive. They adapted to the colder waters, content with hunting smaller species. Today, the apex predators of the marine world are the orcas and sharks. While Megalodon teeth still scatter the seabed from the abyssal plains to the shallows and shores, these apex predators continue the legacy of the ocean's greatest predator.